Hello everybody, welcome to Mind the Crack. I'm Darren Kuzma and I'm joined by Devante again today.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
So, Mind the Crack is a series of webinars we're doing on life improvement tools based on the works of L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. We're looking at life hacks, different information, things that you can do for yourself, and also the different materials that Scientology can offer you and all the different activities that you can do within Scientology basically to improve your life. So we just finished a week or so of the subject of study and learning, and now we're on to motivation. Yesterday morning, I did a webinar, the first one as an introduction, and we looked at the difference between inner motivation and external motivation. So now we're going to take a look today at some different factors that can affect your motivation, or how different situations will make you feel down, and therefore how you can get out of them and improve your motivation. Okay, so before we start on that, I'm just going to check in. I am live here in a chat with Zoom, and I just sent a message out to everybody saying hello. So if you're watching on Zoom, you can give me a thumbs up, you can give me a wave, you can send a message through, and I'll see that here live when I'm going on Zoom. But if you're on any of the other platforms, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, or if you're on YouTube, I do have someone else hosting on those platforms, and they will relay messages to me through Zoom. So we'll certainly get that. And the whole idea behind making it as a webinar or something live is that to get you to participate. So if you feel like sharing, the whole idea is when you've got your experiences, your knowledge, and you hear some new knowledge, you can therefore compare the two, see whether they fit, see whether you can make some use out of it, or even just try it out and see how it goes, or to see if it clashes. But anyway, the point is comparing new information to what you have already is always a very good starting point for learning anything at all. Okay, so motivation. We're going to look at a definition first of all, because the topic today is, are you overwhelmed by unfinished projects? So we're going to look at definition.
That's a very, very interesting subject.
You might have some experience, as do I. So we're going to talk about some of our own experiences, but I want to get this definition out. So are you overwhelmed by unfinished projects? So let's look at the definition of overwhelmed. So I've got a definition here from the Oxford Dictionary, and I'm just going to summarize it briefly. But basically we're looking at being overcome or overpowered by force or numbers of things, okay? And then it is also a thought or feeling of intense emotion that overpowers you and renders you unable to do things.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that's the concept we're looking at. And over and whelmen, over is like too much of or greater than, and whelmen basically is from Old English meaning to turn over. So it's something that is so powerful or so strong in number that it turns you over or upsets you or puts you into a condition where you can't operate as usual. And certainly having a number of unfinished projects on your list of to-do things can be overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
So first of all, if we look at the opposite just for a second, because if someone is easily overwhelmed, they're easily overcome.
Yeah.
If we look at the opposite, someone who is resilient, someone who is able to withstand or cope with a lot of things being thrown on them or a lot of emotion being put on them. When I was younger, I had a certain idea of how to deal with that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I had the idea that I needed to be nice to everyone and kind to everyone, and I had it all sort of level in my head that if I just treated everyone nicely, then they would treat me nicely. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that there was a bit of anxiety that went with that and where that came from. But I had this weird idea because I was studying Chinese medicine as well, and you know in Chinese medicine they have a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had this idea that in order to keep balanced, right, so I could not just outflow and put out, kindness to everyone and make everyone sort of be nice back to me. I had the idea, since my profession was taking care of people, healing them, having them be happy or look after themselves, that I had to do the opposite, so the yang side. So that was like the yin, and then I had to do the yang. So I enrolled in karate classes. I found in Australia anyway, the most violent form of karate that there was, where from the day one you started sparring with people. Because most forms of karate you would have to go through certain belts before you got to sparring. You would have to, certain levels. But this form, Kyokushin karate, it was well known that you just go in and then from day one you start sparring. So I had the idea of beating the crap out of people and one time would balance out this whole thing, right? So I'm not going to say that it was fun, but it was kind of like I was doing it, I thought, for like some sort of spiritual balancing.
Yeah.
Right? And so it worked out in some ways as an experience, not negative, until one of my lower belt gradings. And I wouldn't hold back because, in my professional life, I wouldn't hold back. I would take care of people. But in karate, I also wouldn't hold back. I would just like go for it, whatever it was. So in one of my gradings, I was up against my sensei. And he was a big, bad dude. And I kind of forgot in some ways, got a little bit arrogant because I just beaten out someone else up to win a certain part of the grading, right? And then I went into him. And I got him a really good one, like a good kick. And he was a black belt. I was one of the lower belts, and it's not really... he was holding back, right? Yeah. You could see he was cruising along in first gear. There's like, blocks here and all that sort of thing, and a knee there and all that sort of stuff. And then when I kicked him good, I was looking, and like you could see in his eyes, it's kind of like...
He woke up the dragon.
Yes. You prick. You just got me. So then at that point in time, he just dropped all the barriers, and he kicked me so hard, like I had learned a certain block for whatever it was, and I started to get there, and he just kicked through it, right? And I couldn't walk for a week. So anyway, that foray into the yin and yang balancing of things to try and, be more resilient and, not necessarily deal with my anxieties of having to help people, didn't really work. So I learned that the hard way. Did you have any experiences yourself in a similar way?
Oh man, when growing up in my household, you had to be very resilient, and or you learned how to get resilient.
Okay.
I was the youngest male in my house that lived in my house, and then I had two of my uncles. Mm-hmm. So one uncle was 2 years older than me, and then his brother was 2 years older than him. So he's 4 years older than me. And then my eldest uncle, he's much older than my mom, but he was paralyzed in the right arm.
Oh, damn.
And, coming up as a young buck, I was kind of cocky, like, oh, I could beat you up. You only got one arm, very, but...
That was your observation of what you could do, but you having fun with him at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
But, sometimes I'd be very flippant, off at the mouth with my uncles, and, I'd be playing tricks on them and stuff like that. And, as young brothers do, because we grew up like brothers, as young brothers do, we fought.
They give you a whooping, right?
And me being the nephew and them two being the brothers, it was always them two against me. So I used to get beat down a lot. But
so that taught you to be resilient. Like, were you when if we just look at this whole idea of overwhelm again, right? Was that something that overwhelmed you, or? Oh
my goodness, yeah, overwhelmed me a lot. But throughout time, I realized that the things in which I caused these things to happen, and it may be this way for that period, that moment, but after the fact, I'm good. Like, I actually wasn't really hurt. Like, in the moment, I didn't like the discomfort of it, but after I got through it, it was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm fine. Like, I can do exactly the same thing tomorrow, and
Interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting that when you go through some of life's hard knocks physically, you do as you grow up, you kind of realize, oh, that didn't kill me, so I guess that's kind of okay in a way. I definitely didn't, like, as a young boy, I definitely wasn't like that. I was definitely much more worried about my body, worried about upsetting teachers, and that was something that I had definitely in me as a boy. You know, I definitely cried a lot when things didn't go wrong, like, you know, as a kid, you know, that sort of thing. So I definitely wouldn't have said that I was a resilient kid. Would you have said that about yourself with all this fighting with your uncles, or?
Not when it came to family, no, I wasn't very resilient. I was very, even though I could portray myself to be very thick-skinned, when it came to family matters in public, I was very sensitive. And like things got to me. But when it came to, like, you know, me and my family going against, like, that group going against some other opposing attack, oh man, we were very resilient. And we got together and we were like, no!
Put on the front to fight, sort of thing.
Yeah. But when it came to, you know, family, I was very sensitive. I wasn't very resilient.
Like, give us an example.
So, like, there was one day I was on a church trip, and we're going to see a movie, and I don't remember what was said, but something was said to my uncle said something to me, and it really hurt my feelings. And there was a girl that I had a crush on that was sitting in front of me.
All right.
And I started crying. And the fact that I was crying hurt worse because she was in front of me and she saw me. And I'm like trying to tell myself to stop crying, but then I'm like, but she's in front of me. I can't stop crying because now she sees it already. And I'm just like, man, I just got punked in front of my crush.
Yeah.
Man. And I tried to go to my mom, and mom was like, why are you crying? Ain't nobody hurt you. Ain't nobody did that to you. And I'm like,
I had a similar thing. You know, like one time, something happened to me, but nothing happened. Someone just like said something to me, and my parents were like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
So I wasn't resilient to that degree. Was it something really like harsh that your uncle said, or was it kind of like not really?
I don't think it was very harsh.
Right.
I just think like I think I was like being very me and just getting on his nerves and being very annoying. He popped me upside the head.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right.
He popped me upside the head.
Yeah, just simple, right?
Yeah, just like, boom, like, leave me alone, stop playing so much. And, you know, I got hit in front of my crush. And I'm like, I didn't hit back.
Okay.
And it's like, cry. Automatic.
Yeah. And I don't know whether it was my parents, but did you have anything like this? Like I said, I don't know whether it came from my parents or it just came from where it was. You know, sticks and stones may hurt my bones.
The words will never hurt me.
You got it. So at some stage, that made sense to me. You know, going through primary school, or I'm sure it was primary school at some stage, but that feeling in myself of resilience, it didn't come until much later. Yes, some physical hardships and things that came as part of it, but what about for yourself?
I know for the words, things that people said about me never really bothered me openly. Like I dealt with it internally, and maybe like I sat there and I thought about it when I was at home by myself. But whenever I was out and about, I made it seem like you couldn't hurt me. Like nothing you said or did could affect me at all. And you know, I really put that there. And a lot of people actually left me alone because they realized, oh, we really can't get anything out of Devontae.
Smart.
Or I made a
I was a bit more sensitive. They could see easily they could do something.
And then I started wrestling. And that's when a lot of things started changing with my own confidence in myself and my own like toughness. Because it was like when you're wrestling, it's just you and another person on the mat. Right. And if you're good, you take them down and you win. Boom! Like it's like, oh, you got something now. It's like, oh wow, all right, got it. And I was like, it made me more stronger. Like people would say something to me, I'm just like, you know, it's fine, it's cool. You know, if you want to go toe to toe, you can.
That is interesting you say it in that way, and I think learning a discipline of martial arts, or at least having that feeling of being able to cause something, it does give confidence in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, because you know that you can defend yourself to a certain degree, and you can, you know, work on someone if they like are kind of attacking you, even though you don't need to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a bit of a self-defense thing. So that can kind of have you feel in some ways like that you're okay.
Yeah.
We're talking a little bit before. Tell me that story. What it was that someone was picking on you, but you didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Oh, so there was this guy, like in my neighborhood, like we all kind of grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy, he moved away for like, I think like 3-4 years. And he came back. Mm-hmm. And when he came back, he got big.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, you know, after school we would go to one of my friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd just kind of hang out and stuff like that. And sometimes we'd start play fighting. And it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be on the side kind of like chilling because, you know, I really don't like the horseplay around because I get real quick.
You're right.
So, you know, he starts picking on my friend.
Yeah.
And, you know, my friend not really able to handle, like, he can't dance with him. So it's like, yo, like, leave me alone. Like, leave me. He's like, oh, stop. I'm like, yo, like, chill out. Like, you know, leave him alone, man.
You stepped
in. Yeah, if you're going to mess with somebody that's your size. Yeah. And he's like, man, ain't nobody over here my size. And then another guy said, what about Devontae? Devontae about your size? And I'm like, bro, like, I'm not here for that. Like, we don't want that. We don't want them problems. And he's like, oh, what, you scared? And I'm like, no, I'm not scared. I just don't want to get into that right now. Like, that's not why I'm here. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he started getting flippant, loud, like, oh, like, ready, like, calling me names and whatnot. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, if you want to do something, you know, make a move. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to jump. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he swung at me. It connected. I came back, hit him in the jaw, scooped him up, and threw him on the ground. And I just started going. And my friends was like, whoa, we need to get him. Like, grabbed me, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm good. Like, you know, I told him.
Yeah.
He's like yelling at me, like, man, Devontae, man, you can't be playing like that, man. I'm like, dude, I told you. Like, I wasn't here for that. Like,
yeah, well, so these are definitely ways of, you could say, increasing your resilience because, you know, physical overwhelm wasn't really then something that affected you.
No.
But for myself, with an emotional side of things, the kind of like, I didn't even really register that it was putting me into such a state of anxiety, but of wanting to please people. You know, they would ask me to do things and I would say yes, and, you know, I'd do my best at certain things, but I definitely had a whole list of things that would stack up simply because I was trying to please people. Mm-hmm. But then I did some Dianetics. So Dianetics, okay, quite simple, myself and another person asking me some questions to go back and look at what happened. And the garbage that you collect against you, if you look at it this way, you've heard of the Black Panther mechanism?
Yeah, Wakanda forever!
Not that one. different thing, right?
I got what you mean, yeah.
Right? But you gotta, as he writes about in the book, you know, if you got a problem, you go and attack it. And so this particular subject for me was something that I had anxiety over. I was like concerned about people being nice. So it's like, it's strange, what could you get out of it, right? But think of it this way. There were some circumstances or some situations in my past of, you know, maybe I got beat up at school a couple of times, or someone shouted at me something, or a teacher got really upset with me, and like we had one teacher who was an absolute giant and the kids were like scared of him, you know. And he was the teacher that took gym class, and he had this mustache and he had these eyebrows that were about to take over his face, you know, like, and he had really gruff voice, and something about that voice, right, that just really roar, you know, and I got scared. So I had these experiences in my life. A lot of them I'd kind of like wouldn't be thinking of on a present time, day-to-day basis. But when I went in Dianetics and I went through all this baggage that I was holding there, I realized that in my, L. Ron Hubbard talks about reactive mind, right? It's kind of like your subconscious, right? It's there the whole time. So here I am in life operating with yes and wanting to please people and wanting to make them happy. But literally that reaction was coming from, in my mind, not wanting to experience the same sort of things that happened to me as a kid and how they were actually affecting me in the present. So when I did the Dianetics and I went through and I had a look at and I inspected for myself what they really were, I had a new level of realization. It's like, wow, I actually want to relate to people on a truth basis. Like, what is real for me? Someone wants me to do something and would then say to them, I understand, but it doesn't make sense to me because of blah reason. Whereas in the past, I would have said, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's go ahead and do it. Because I had these resistances in myself that were stopping me from really just being me.
Yeah.
So for me, being resilient and being able to hold my ground and not say yes to everything or not just be kind to everyone, that feeling of overwhelm that I was literally having on a daily basis of trying to please people and concerns or whatever, that they weren't logically in my mind, but emotionally they were there every day.
Yeah.
Was handled with doing Dianetics. So
wow.
I definitely became more resilient through that.
I know that I had an experience with Dianetics before that the way I was that I would take on lots of stuff. And I had these really huge ideas. And these huge ideas became like mountains for me, like big mountains. And I'd come to the mountain and I would see how much effort would need to be to plow through this mountain. And I'd just drop it. It's just like, you know what? It's fine. It's okay. And the amount of times I did that throughout my life, so many different things. Big mountain, yeah, okay. Not right now. Like, I don't want to do this. But there was a specific moment, a very painful moment that happened to me. And after we got done with this, like, there was a change over like 3-4 days. Like, every day I felt like I had more energy and more vigor. Like, I had more enthusiasm about the ideas that just popped up. And I'm like, whoa, like, I feel different. Like, something's different.
Interesting.
Like, it wasn't like a physical feeling. It was just like something is different here. And I started noticing, like, if I had an idea of something that I wanted to do, like, I put it in the physical universe. Like, I put it here, and I just, boom. So I plowed through. I was like, whoa, I like this. So it's like, boom, boom. Wow, this is nice. Like, when did this start? And I was like, wow, when I had the Dianetic session, like, all this stuff started happening, like, after that. And I'm just like, wow.
Interesting.
Completely amazing, man.
So was that thing that was stopping you, did it feel, when it was stopping you, was it something that you feel you could access easily and go, oh, well, that's the reason why I'm stopping? Or like, how did the feeling change?
I know from the points where I would stop, I'd always give some type of, like, reason as to why. It's like, oh, I don't have enough to do with this, or I don't know enough about this. I would always justify it some type of way. Like, it would be like, stop, and I'd be like, oh, wait, I'm not trained on blah, so I can't do this.
Right.
Or I've never studied, like, how to use a microphone, so I can't do voiceovers. Or I've never really did writing classes, so I can't write poetry or anything like that. So it's like, what are you talking about? Just do it, you know?
Interesting. So it's kind of like that inner block to all those things that you have put together. And I think one thing I mentioned in the webinar yesterday is the axiom, the self-evident truth, the thing that you can see quite plainly, is what happens with your mind, or your mind will operate in a way that you have done things in the physical universe.
Yeah.
So when you build up all these projects for yourself, and even though it can be an internal block that stopped you from doing it, and you justified why you didn't do it, when you get the idea to do something and you don't follow through, it becomes this dwindling spiral where it gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I think both of us saw, therefore, with Dianetics, how that can really release that inner, release those inner blocks, and you can just like charge through and be more yourself in that way.
Big time.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Now, there is another book we've got over there, The Way to Happiness. And in that book, Aaron Hubbard is writing about a number of different precepts, and one of them is fulfilling your obligations.
Oh, yeah.
And in that book, he talks a bit about how you can actually discharge them. Like, how did that feel for you? Like, as a younger person growing up, did you have any obligations or mechanisms or ways of dealing with your obligations that either worked or didn't work?
I play my video games.
You're obligated to do that, right?
That was my only obligation as a child was to play video games and enjoy my life.
Right, but what about chores? Because anyone living on this planet accumulates obligations as they go along.
Yeah.
Right? You're born. Immediately you're obligated to your parents for them in the first number of years of your life, feeding you, giving you clothes, giving you a place to sleep, all that sort of stuff. So with those obligations, there must have been something other than playing video games.
There were quite a few things.
Yeah.
My granddad owned a jewelry shop, and me and my uncles, we would all work there, but we all had very specific tasks. Like one uncle was like over like the money, like the one that was 2 years older than me. He was over the money.
2 years older than you.
2 years older than me.
And over the money.
He was over the money. And then the one that was 4 years older than me, he was over like the technical aspect of it. And like I think my granddad like envisioned this way, and like he just put it in.
Yeah.
And I was more so the manual labor guy. So like my granddad would teach me how to like fix certain jewelry items and how to clean jewelry and things like that. And I was like, oh wow. And this became like a job. But then, I really wouldn't want to go every day. Like, no, I don't want to do this every day. Like, so I'd be home.
We're going to play computer games.
Yeah, I want to play computer. He even had a computer at the shop. And we would be on the computer. All three of us. Yeah, right. We'd be on the computer playing, it's like this moon game where you're like on the thing, you're like shooting at enemies.
Fulfilling obligations.
And, but like, when I'm at home, we had like basic chores. Every second weekend, we had to cut the grass. Like, that would be something that we knew would need to be done.
Yeah.
And sometimes my grandma would ask me, she's like, hey, are you going to cut the grass tomorrow? And I was like, yes, I'm going to cut the grass tomorrow.
Very certain.
Yeah. And she would leave.
Yeah.
Normally I would just answer the question like, yes, so you leave me alone.
Yeah,
like,
right.
So she leave. Next morning, I'm up, video games. Like, I'm playing video games, watching cartoons, doing what I do.
Yeah.
And she asked, hey, what time you going to cut the grass? I'm like, oh, we'll cut the grass later. And she's like, okay, great. So, later comes around. She's like, hey, what time you going?
Trusting you, right?
Yeah. What time you going to cut the grass? Oh, I'm kind of tired.
How old were you?
I'm like 12.
Yeah, doing nothing all day, sitting in front. I'm tired. Yeah, right.
My hands, man.
Oh, yeah,
that's a hand workout.
Justifications, right.
But, it came around, like, it started to get late. Like, the sun is starting to go down, and she's like, hey, so you didn't cut the grass today? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do it next weekend. And she's like, no, you can still do it now. I'm like, but the sun is going down. I can't cut grass with the sun. She's like, oh, but you said you're going to cut the grass, so cut the grass.
Right.
Like,
that's some discipline, some ethics.
Yeah. So I'm outside cutting the grass. The sun goes down, and I wanted to go back in. She's like, no, you need to finish the grass. So I finished the grass. But, like, it really never occurred to me, like, maybe how, like, important this was until one day. I'm older. Like, I'm, like, 15. And I see my grandma is outside. And some Saturdays I would go to my dad's, like, detail shop and wash cars for him. And my grandma's outside with hedge clippers. And I hear the hedge clippers. And she's like going over the hedges. And I actually liked it doing the hedging. Like, I ran. I'm like, Grandma! Like, I grabbed the hedge. She goes, what you doing? She's like, the hedge has been growing and ain't nobody cut the hedges, so I'll do it myself. I was like, no, I got it. You go inside the house. I cut the hedges. So I'm out there like cutting the hedges. Like, at first I'm like angry about this. Like, why did she just ask me? So all she had to do was ask me. I'm like, I'm older now.
Right.
So I'm like, she just had to ask me. So I'm upset. And then after I get through it, I'm just like, I'm happy because I'm like, I'm doing this. Like,
you're fulfilling your obligations. You're helping grandma.
Yeah.
But tell me, after that original story you told where you let her down, right? She believed that you were going to cut the grass.
Yeah.
And then she had to discipline you, being an external source, said, no, you got to cut the grass. I don't care whether it's dark. You got to cut the grass. After that time, because you could see her persistence, and if she asked you to do something and you said yes, that she was going to make you do it.
Oh, yeah. My grandma had a very, she had a saying. Like, she wouldn't necessarily, like, tell you, go do blah.
Yeah.
She would ask you, can you do this for me? And if you say yes, She say, your word is your bond.
Interesting.
It's like one thing she hammered into us, like your word is your bond. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
And so that grass cutting incident, after that time, when she would come and ask you, were you either guaranteed or more likely to do it because you knew if you said yes, she was going to make you do it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
Definitely. I'm like, you know what? Let me just go and put the game down now.
Right.
Because after that incident, I actually didn't have my game for about 2 weeks. Because of the fact that I wasn't gonna. It's like, oh, what would you do all day? And my mom was like, well, what did you do? It's like, oh, I was playing video games. Okay. Well,
so your mom would.
You're not going to video game now. Like,
right. Your mom would rouse on you then.
Yeah.
Ground you, whatever. Interesting. So it is funny how when we have obligations or even things that we agree to, whether we really want to do them, like you really wanted to, clip the hedges for your gran, or whether or not you just said, yeah, gran, I'll cut the grass. You didn't really want to, but the consequences of you saying no to something would be your mom coming to...
It'd be my mom, like, did grandma just ask you to do blah? I'm like, yes, ma'am, what'd you say? Oh, I said no, I didn't want to do it. What? That's not a matter of whether you wanted to do it or not. Like, she's not asking you because you have an option. She's asking you because you want to be nice.
Yeah.
But you say yes, like, so you need to do it anyway.
So the obligations that we promise, or the obligations we build up and then we say, yes, I'll do that. If we don't do them, it has a negative effect kind of in both ways, because you've said you're going to do something, so in your mind you perhaps rehearse or whatever you're going to do, and then you don't carry it out. It's part of that dwindling spiral that just zaps your motivation that, well, I said no, I said yes, I would do something, and then I didn't do it already. Well, that's okay to do again. One of the concepts that L. Ron Hubbard goes over, of course, as you know, is that beings are basically good.
Yeah.
Which means they're basically right.
Yeah.
So whenever we do something wrong,
you have to make it right.
You have to make it right by saying, well, the reason that I didn't do it actually is because that person is a so-and-so and not really worth helping because they're a bad person. So I did the right thing by not helping a bad person. Or the other mechanism is to make yourself right. You didn't do it one time, so then the next time it comes around, it's like, well, last time I was obviously right because of, I didn't have time or I was tired and people need to look after me. So then the next time it comes up, you just get those same excuses because that makes you right because of the first time how you didn't do it. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, in The Way to Happiness, L. Ron Hubbard talks about discharging these duties. And I think you had a story to tell on how you had some obligations, and then the advice from L. Ron Hubbard is basically good. So sum up, bring all together your obligations, look at what it is that you've got to do, and just make a list of how you can repay those debts or how you can get those things done. And I know I've done that myself. I had something that I needed to do for longer than 6 months. I didn't do this thing. And then I went and did it and gave it to the person. They're like, oh my God, I thought you'd forgotten about it. But if I felt good by just getting it done. And that person's regard towards me totally changed after that.
Yeah. Did
you have any similar situations?
I actually have, man. I called something, and it wasn't very, the best thing to happen, and I was like, man, I see, the impact that it made, and it's like, okay, now I actually feel like this. And actually, throughout this point, after it happened, I was like, okay, I need to jump back into this so I can, put this stuff back in. So I'm setting a good example, fulfill your obligations, be worthy of trust. I'm going through this data every day. And then it got to a point to where, I kind of felt like I hit a brick wall. And I'm like, what's going on? And then out of the blue, I'm studying something that I'm studying from L. Ron Hubbard, which is really connected with something that's inside the Handbook for Pre-Players. And
another book, yeah.
It got to a point where I made a decision to be, to go into action. It was like, hey, stop letting everything get to you. Just go. And I started making up the damage that was caused, and I'm like, wow, this feels really good. So I'm like, boom, here, ooh, boom, I'm gonna do this. And it wasn't me doing it in a way to for appeasement. It was for me.
Right.
It's I'm doing this because I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, 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 boom. Now, seeing the effect of it is also good.
Yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
it feels good too, I bet.
Yeah, it felt fantabulous, man.
I think that message that Ron Hubbard gives is actually one of the most powerful messages, is that it actually doesn't matter what adversity you've gotten yourself into, doesn't matter what situation you've been dragged down to, that you can make a decision. And just by making the decision to do something and just start, you can override everything.
Anything.
And he talks about that in Dianetics, he talks about that in this handbook for pre-clears, he talks about that in many, many times over. And obviously, it's almost like there are a number of routes, right? Someone may have the power, you can have the power, that's like the first acknowledgement. You are powerful enough to just make that decision and change.
It's like He-Man.
Right. But at the same stage, right, there are tools to help you there. You know, it's tools to help you figure out the different steps and even the mechanics of making that simple decision. You can make the decision, or here's the mechanics for how you can get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like a very comprehensive, or it covers both actions of both sides of it, right? So that's awesome. Very powerful way to approach it is to just decide and just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, and then also, like you said, like when you have the tools, it's like it makes the difference between trying to dig a hole with your hands
Mm-hmm.
and digging a tunnel with a shovel and a pickaxe.
Right.
You know, it's like it blows it out of the water.
Yeah.
Like had I not, like I can look back over areas of my life where I didn't have like these tools. I didn't know the things that I know now.
Mm-hmm.
It was just tough for me, man. Like,
Yeah.
and I actually did just, I had to be right. So I made myself very correct, and I continued to just
go down. Yeah. So not only do we have obligations that are like kind of given to us, but we also have work. We also have our own creative ideas. We also have things that you want to do. And I know myself, I have such a broad, expansive interest in so many different subjects. I just go through daily life. Well, actually, I don't do it anymore, but I used to have this habit where I would just go through daily life and, oh, I would like to do that. Oh, that would sound good. Oh, let me keep that book, or I want to read that. Oh, I want to listen to that. And pretty soon, my list of things to do, of all these different projects I had, was ridiculous, because I would spend more time, one of these things, making a list and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which obviously there is a particular way that you can do that correctly, but I would just make a list of everything that I would have to do, and then I would go and do that list over and over sometimes. Got to the point where I spent 45 minutes making a list. So just making lists in itself, as for the purpose of looking everything, I would feel overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, I got too many things to do.
So much to do.
Right, now in problems of work, the solution to that is to handle the work as it comes across your plate.
Boom, cycle of action. Start, change, stop.
Good. So something comes in. I know I had the habit of, whether it be letters or anything like that. Oh, here's a bunch of letters, or here's my to-do list. Let me look over those things. And as I was making that list, I would find myself thinking about each of these things. And that process of thinking about it, or sorting through my letters, opening the letter and having a look at it and going, oh, that's interesting, and putting it aside and looking at the next one, you're literally doing double, and in some cases with my list, like triple, quadruple work. Because at the time that something comes across your desk and you look at it, you're making calculations and computations on what you can do with that particular thing. And then you go and leave it aside and look at the next thing. It's
making more calculations.
Right, to make more calculations. And then it's when you come back to that thing, what are you going to do again?
You got to make more calculations.
Right.
Like you lose so much time. And then, the thing that people always say whenever you're talking to you, like, it's like, so, like, like, what are you doing tomorrow? Like, or can we meet up sometime? Oh, man, I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. It's like, okay, why don't you have enough time? Like, I pretty much know your schedule.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that, oh, no, but I have, like, so many things that I have to do.
Because they're all on their mind.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I've got so many things to do. And then if you go to their home, like, because I've done this before, go around and, oh, dude, I can't come out to the pub tonight. I've got too many things to do. They're like, oh, no worries, I'll see you tomorrow, right? And then it just so happened that I had to go past their place anyway, and you get to their place, and they're sitting down watching TV, and you're like, I thought you had too many things to do. And they're like, oh, yeah, and they can't. work it out. You're like, I got you. You're sitting here doing nothing, and you said you had things to do. And that, I think, is a good example of the overwhelm that people think. It drives them into inaction. Too many things to do, and then you just don't get active on something.
Yeah.
You know, making lists and thinking about them, just sorting through your stuff, and not handling anything at the time, doubles and triples your work, because if you actually do end up doing it, you've got to do it again. So that book, The Problems of Work, and I know you do a course, actually, you deliver a course here.
Yeah, the Personal Efficiency Seminar.
Yeah.
And we actually go over cycle of action and, also things with like confusion, for that matter, because the confusion can be very overwhelming for somebody. Right. You just have all these things just whoosh, spiraling around you, and you're just like, oh, what do I do now? And we go over like, okay, what is it that you need to do to handle that? Just grab one thing and start that one thing, finish that, boom, let's go to the next thing, boom, finish that, let's go to the next thing.
Definitely. That piece of information has created so much time for me. And when I had those lists after I read The Problems of Work and learned that point of, okay, you go to confusion, which is so many things in motion, which literally they were. From that list, everything was in motion in my head.
Yeah.
And then just saying, that's it. This is the first thing that I'm going to do. Let me take that one thing, do it as the stable datum, as the stable piece of information of what I'm working on. Complete that to the full, and then all of a sudden, this magic started to occur in my head. Dude, it's like, that's finished. That's put aside.
I can stop thinking about it.
Yes, literally. And when I've had other people do that same sort of thing, like they've got all these things wandering around their head, just say, okay, good. Choose one thing. I don't care how difficult it is. If it's a big project or a little project, just go and do it and get it done and come back and report to me. And just by doing one thing and completing it from their list of things to do, it can be so liberating. The person's mind is not stuck on that thing anymore. So that's a bit of magic right there in terms of bringing your mood up or elevating yourself, creating more time for yourself, handling a lot of the things that are associated with, motivation draining situations.
Because it feels really good, like getting this stuff done. Like once you like really complete something, you get this gratification where it's like, hey, I can get things done. Like I can do stuff. Right. And you're like, okay, cool, let's do something else. Boom, and you get that done. Yeah. Oh, I need to do this for quite a while. Boom, you get that done. He's like, I'm on a roll here. Let's like, what else can I do?
And we have to stipulate the difference between starting something and getting it done.
Yeah.
The number of times, go clean your room. Yeah, okay. Pick your pants up off the floor because you needed to wear something. Put your pants on. Looks cleaner. That's not a product. That's not a completed action. It's not something that your mom and dad's going to walk and go, oh, good, it's clean. It's going to be like, did you clean it? It's like, well, I started.
Like, I started, a little bit. It looks better than it did before. Like, Mom, did you see how it looked when you asked me to clean? Yeah. I look at it. Yeah. She's like, yeah, but this is still there. That's still there. That's upside down. What is that? It's like, but that's, this wasn't, there was something here earlier. Yeah. It's not there anymore.
And that's that sort of thing, clarifying that sort of situation, I have found, is something that's been very, very good if I've been doing something, especially for someone who's picky, right? Because in order for someone to feel, let's say you've got an obligation or someone has asked you to do things, right? Clarifying what is that task being complete meaning for them is a very important point. Yeah. Because if your wife or your partner asks you, can you go down and get some of the groceries I said? And you just think, great, I'm just going to go down the shop and get some groceries. If you come back without the complete list, it's not complete. You didn't go shopping. Yeah. Right? So, okay, in order for me to get this shopping complete, what have I needed to buy? What needs to come back with me? Whether it's at work or whether it's with your friends, in order for that thing to be a product that they can say, that's done. Clarifying for someone, I think, is often a very important point, because what's the first thing that the thought that comes into your head? You went grocery shopping, you bought everything except for the onions or the shampoo or something like that. You didn't go shopping, and then she's rousing on you and you're like, oh, bitch. You go into that critical thing because I'm right for going shopping.
Yeah, like I went there.
Yeah, she's wrong.
Like I even had some of the stuff that was on the list, and I'm like asking people, "Hey, where can I find this thing?" Yeah, that.
Because you're a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then she comes back and she's telling you that you didn't go shopping. It's like,
I'm
I
just
did.
like, well, you do it yourself. If you want this stuff, you go.
Right. So getting from someone the complete list of what is needed to be complete, I think, is an important one.
Even going out, if you're going to go to a chipper or something, you're going to get something for yourself. And you're like, hey, hon, so I'm about to go to the chipper. Do you want something? She's like, oh, no, thanks.
Yeah.
And then you go and you get something for you. You come back. Oh, you didn't get anything?
So I asked you.
But you should know.
That's right. Honey, I got myself these chips. Yeah, but I always like to have a taste. It's like, but you said nothing. Anyway, we could go on about that point. But I think more important than... so there's the keeping obligations or fulfilling your obligations to other people, keeping your word and that sort of thing. Probably the most important person that you need to keep your word to is yourself. Yeah. Exactly. So, because aside from becoming the boy who cried wolf, right? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm going to do this, or I've got this idea, and then you don't do it, right? So you're crying out, the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
You heard that one, right?
Wolf!
Yeah.
Village is like, let's get it.
Where's the wolf?
Where's the wolf?
And when there's really a wolf...
he gets ate up.
Yeah. No one's coming to help. So, doing that with yourself is one of the most demeaning and degrading things that you can do to yourself. And it relates a little bit to that axiom again that I mentioned yesterday in the webinar. The person does with thought as they have done with entities in the physical universe. The mind does with thought as they have done with entities in the physical universe. And if you get yourself into these habits and these patterns of stacking up activities and not completing them, you cry and wolf to yourself. I'm going to do and then not doing. I'm going to get done or complete or blah and then not doing it. You set yourself up in these cycles and these patterns. So there also has to be a level of reality to it as well. Or a level of persistence of continuing for something.
Yeah.
In that way. So you had mentioned before prime thought. You had mentioned an ongoing, just making the decision to change.
Yeah.
Anything else on unfinished projects that you would like to check in on, that you'd like to let know? Now, as you think about that, I'm going to check in over here and just have a word with Michelle and ask her if we have any feedback that wants to be shared with us, or if there's any questions at all coming through on the different platforms. I
think something else just popped up.
Okay, nice. Okay, so she's giving us the message there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, anything that you would like to mention on the subject?
I mean, I would be more so just, for everybody is, just go over the things that you have started and write down like 5 things that you have started. Write down 5 things. Don't go crazy. Write down 100 things because you're going to look at it. You're going to
like I did.
5 things. Boom. And, tackle it. Knock it off the list. Boom. Okay, I got that done. Boom, I got that done. Boom, I got that done. Okay, and then 5 more things that you've started. And just go through there. Because if you go all in, you're like, oh, okay, this is way too much. I'm not going to be able to get this done.
That's
if you go bit by bit, you knock it off, and then you yourself will start to feel freer. You'll feel more free, more able to do more things, and you'll find that you become good busy, not busy.
Dispersed busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have experienced the difference there. So the next webinar that we're having, we're talking about, is it possible to be happy without a goal? So the role of goals in motivation. So almost everyone has obligations, but not everyone has goals. But setting goals for yourself is part of the process of motivating yourself. If you never set a goal or you never put something there, you've not got something to work forward. So anyway, in the next webinar, that's what we'll be talking about, the subject of goals as it relates to motivation. If you had any questions at all, or as we bring this to a close, anything else that you'd like to mention, across any of the platforms there, send your comments across. The host, Michelle, will then pass it to you. Otherwise, the books of the content that we have covered today, we mentioned how handling some inner blocks to motivation can be done through Dianetics. We looked at the precepts, or some of the precepts from The Way to Happiness, and how that book itself, bringing calm and logic to your life, is supremely fantastic for just the most encompassing kind of look at everything in life. Then there's the Problems of Work. You can come and do the Personal Efficiency course that is delivered here at the center. Devante delivers that himself. You could also buy the book. And then we've got also this handbook for pre-clears, a handbook that L. Ron Hubbard put together for someone who is making the journey toward clear, which is the end result of Dianetics. And that's why it's pre-clear, so on the way to being clear. And that book there is going over a lot of the information of tools on the various aspects of your life, from just making a decision, which he calls prime thought, just having that prime, that sort of influence, just you yourself deciding something.
I want to be.
Yeah, mechanics of that. All the different attitudes. There's a chart in there of the attitudes and how you might have certain negative attitudes and how you can bring yourself up. So from these books that we've highlighted today, if you want to click on the link, which Michelle will put on all of the different platforms there, so you can check out any of those books. Alternatively, if there's anything that we said today that resonated with you personally and you'd like to find out a lot more about specifically what might apply to you, there will be another link for you to register for a free consultation with one of our staff. No obligation, but just to call up, have a word and see what personally you're going through and what you need help with most immediately. Okay, so I'm looking across for the last time to Zoom. That's all it. Thank you very much once again.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next Saturday, if not before. Who knows? Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much, everyone. Shanae for today.